So, hands up if any of your organizations have done something special for Pride, like a Pride logo, a rainbow logo, a little party, something. Yep. Okay. Keep your hands up if those are still up there right now. Intentionally. Okay. Yep. So, first of all, thank you very much. I feel really seen on behalf of my community, on behalf of all LGBT people. Thank you for acknowledging the community and for doing something to show your support. But you know what? It's the 2nd of July today, and I'm still fucking gay. So, 3 things I want to keep today's session about. One of them is, what shortcuts can you actually use to reach the LGBT market, to be inclusive without actually breaking the bank? 2, how you can actually reach that demographic. And 3, how to be authentically inclusive, so not tokenistic. First things first, there are no shortcuts. Okay? Pride started as a protest. It wasn't a celebration. Now, that doesn't mean that you go out there today and stop celebrating. I don't want to take the fun away, but remember the spirit with which Pride was created. It was a protest against oppression, against segregation, anti-inclusion, so on and so forth. Keep that in mind. That's really important, especially if you're trying to engage younger people. If your target audience is youth, in one of the latest surveys that was done in the USA, 20% of young people identified as LGBTQ+. That's about 4 times higher than ever before in any other survey. So if you want to engage youth, being all year round, being truthful, honest about that is really important. And what that means is, again, understanding that activism that came behind Pride, understanding that there was an angst, there was oppression, which people were fighting against. And if you look at the Times today, if you look at any newspaper, especially in the West, you will see there's a lot of hate and oppression being pushed in the name of politics, religion, all sorts of things. Younger people understand that, and they don't want to work with organizations that are being hateful or supporting that. Another thing to keep in mind is it's always on. Pride happens once a year for 1 month, but the LGBTQ plus market, audience, people, individuals, they live that reality every single day. It's not something that happens for 1 month of the year and then they like being forgotten. We like being forgotten for the rest of the year. So what does that mean for you as a brand, as somebody who holds media rights or does something with that audience? It means doing this year long. Whatever you're doing cannot be a 1 month or 1 day of the year thing. It has to be genuinely all year long. That means stop pride washing. So if you come in and do something for 1 month of the year and then forget about that segment of your customer base, chances are they will remember. They will know that, yes, you did it once and you're not doing it for the rest of the year. And what it also means is that you need to start cleaning up your organizations. We're looking at what you're doing, not just in June, but all year long. We're looking at what you do internally, how you treat your people, as well as how you treat your LGBTQ plus customers. So I would say if your brand doesn't do this well, jumping on for Pride might be a nice and easy way, but don't let that be the first and last thing you do. Acknowledge if there are problems within the organization, tackle those problems. Don't see, oh yeah, we spent money on Pride as a way to wash away all your previous and future sins. That's not the way it works. People are very cognizant of that, and there's definitely backlash around that. The next thing is that support which you talk about, it has to be genuine. So we're not going to look at what we call rainbow washing and go, oh yeah, we feel seen because one day of the year or 1 month of the year you put a little rainbow on your logo, you let out a pride sandwich or some bollocks like that. It doesn't quite work that way. Everybody is smart enough to distinguish where rainbow washing is happening, where somebody's trying to tap into that market as a quick way to earn a quick buck, versus actually doing something genuine. Now, this goes a little bit beyond just your own products and your own logo and so on. It's also about how you handle these things. So don't see it as, oh yeah, we'll get the LGBT employees to tell us what to do for Pride. Or we'll get the token gay guy from the agency who was paraded out for your Pride campaign idea to tell you what to do. Chances are that person might not know what it is they're talking about. Oh, sorry. They might not know, they might not be marketing savvy, they might not be comfortable talking on behalf of an entire community. You want to make sure that you're getting people who are actually invested and are doing this day in and day out to be able to talk to you about this and really pick on the nuances. So I have this fantastic example which I like sharing. I won't name any names, but one of our clients came to us. They wanted to reach out to trans individuals and invite them to an event. It was a great initiative, great idea. They got an agency to do this, very well-meaning people, but somehow, somewhere down the chain, that must have gotten passed on to somebody who didn't know what they were doing. The end result was a series of emails that got sent out to influential trans individuals saying, "Dear sir," or "Madam." I don't need to explain why that sort of tone-deaf marketing can happen very easily. It's a genuinely, it wasn't a malicious mistake, but it was someone who didn't quite do this day in and day out, who didn't know what they were doing, who made an honest mistake. But you could see how badly that could have gone wrong. Only one of those individuals could have been pissed off about it and made a big hue and cry. And what started out as a well-meaning campaign could have ended up in severe backlash for those people. And it happens every day. Maybe that's probably why that person or that whole group of individuals who got that email didn't even bat an eyelid. It was all in a day's work for them. But I don't need to explain why that could have gone really wrong. And that's why we feel like it works better when it's end-to-end. So, support your LGBTQ publishers. Don't just go with the mainstream press. Support your LGBTQ plus suppliers. They probably know better how to engage the audience than an individual in your company or with the regular agency you work with can do. And then, what we find is when it's done as a conscious effort, it just works better end to end. Now, speaking of getting that right audience, targeting LGBTQ plus individuals used to be very straightforward, pun intended, but it isn't today. You cannot reach women seeking women on Meta or any of the Meta, Google, Snap, all of those platforms. GDPR did away with LGBTQ plus targeting. And that's rightly so, because privacy concerns for these individuals were important. Just like race, religion, ethnicity, all of those are matters where you don't necessarily want to be able to target individuals. But there is a negative repercussion to that, and that is the sort of, what's the right word? So lazy marketing. What I find very grating very often myself, you'll see an ad on a gay travel website featuring a straight couple with kids, telling them to go for a holiday in Qatar. Guess how many people on that website are rushing to book holidays in Qatar? That sort of non-malicious but lazy marketing does a lot more harm to brands than it does good. And to avoid that, you need to be able to reach the right audience. But you can't do that on Meta. You can't do that on Google. How do you as a brand do that? Well, the first default way is to create creative that's LGBT focused, is put out there on the networks, and you hope that the audience self-selects, or Meta, Google, all of these places, will really understand that audience based on engagement. But guess what? Engagement does not equal good targeting. The Meta algorithm rewards engagement. What that means is if a bunch of trolls get onto your post and start leaving hateful comments, Meta thinks this is great engagement. And these guys, or girls, or horrible people, whatever gender they may be, are really smart at being just hateful enough for humans to understand it, but for the algorithm not to flag it. And I can give you thousands of examples of that. I've seen that day in and day out. But what that means is your post gets derailed and keeps getting shown to more of these hateful echo chambers, and you end up not actually being seen by the people you set out to target. Not a great situation overall. There's another problem that comes about with basing your targeting on engagement. And that is that you end up in these echo chambers, not just the hateful ones, but also the stereotypical the stereotypical echo chambers. So you end up talking to gay men who like going to Ibiza or Mykonos and watch RuPaul's Drag Race. Or you target women who like sports and martial arts. While those stereotypes kind of work to a very small extent, they're not going to reach all of the audience that you want to. So you end up reaching a very small, at times very vocal, but also, again, lazy, easy to reach segment of the audience. So that's why we created something called the Out Network. It's the first-party audience network of its kind. It's fully opt-in. It's purely LGBTQ plus focused. It's also GDPR compliant. And as of now, we've got 100 million plus individuals on that audience network. So if you want to tap into that, come and speak to me afterwards. I can talk to you more about it. So that's the audience part. How do you reach this audience? The next bit, which is really important, is being authentically inclusive. And what that means is getting your content right, very simply speaking. Yep. An important thing to understand is not all LGBTQ plus people are really sexy white men. We come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, skin colors, abilities, heights, locations, all sorts. And being inclusive means also showing that entire diaspora of the LGBTQ plus audience. How can you do that genuinely, authentically, being inclusive when all you have is a 30-second ad spot, or a little image that you're putting up, or even even a video which people might watch maybe 15, 20 seconds before they go up. One of the best ways we found to do that is to tap into influencers who are niche. And when I mean niche, I don't just mean LGBTQ+. I mean LGBT and Black, LGBT, disabled, living in smaller rural communities, all sorts. So getting those niche influencers works really well in two ways. One, the audience is self-selecting. So Black LGBT individuals will follow Black LGBT influencers more often than not. But also that content, you can scale it much more easily and authentically, because you're kind of giving the individual who represents the community you want to reach, that niche that you want to reach. And once again, we have a fantastic solution for that. We've got the largest network of LGBTQ plus influencers on our books, including some really hard to reach intersectionalities. So I've I've got this fantastic couple of case studies. So we work with AKT, that's the Albert Kennedy Trust, which is a charity for LGBT homeless youth. So teenagers who've been kicked out of their house for being gay, lesbian, etc. Shock horror, it still happens. It's actually increasing year on year, the number of kids who get thrown out of their homes today even. So we work with the AKT because we found out there's certain intersections of the LGBTQ plus demographic who are much more likely to face homelessness. They tend to be trans, they tend to be of color, they tend to be in certain rural areas and so on. And they asked us to help reach those individuals. Influencers tend to be a great way to do that because you can't really go out there and put ads in, say, small local communities. They're not going to reach people. The scale just doesn't justify itself. But when you start finding these niche communities, it works really well. Similarly, we did some work with Roche Pharma. They wanted to raise awareness of women's health issues that are specifically important for trans individuals. So turns out, if you've grown up male and haven't been taught about all the things that women are taught when they're younger, such as testing for breast cancer, checking for cervical cancer, all of that, when you go through a whole load of hormone therapy, radiation, all of that, you are much more susceptible to develop cancers later in life. But you've had to deal with 20 years of segregation, oppression, not being taught about all this, and suddenly you're at 40, you're alone in the world, you have to fight for the right to live and exist as an individual, and then you get cancer. How fun is that, right? It's an awful, awful thing. And how do you reach these people who feel segregated, who feel set apart, and might even not feel comfortable talking to their own GP about a lump that they're feeling in their breast? How do you get these individuals to open up? That being able to connect with them through communities, through people that they identify with, is really important, turns out. And so, finding the right influencers, finding people whom you can reach, whom you can use to reach and connect with that audience, is really important. So, I'm sorry, it's kind of ending on a downer, and I've said lots of things you can't do, but there's always a way around it. So, for everything you can't do, there are actually things you can do to make a real, genuine, positive impact and work with that community. I don't need to tell you all why marketing to the LGBTQ audience is important. You know, if 20% is reality, that's 1 in 5 people who are going to be your future customers, who are going to be your future employees, who are going to be your future suppliers and distributors, who care about these things. It's really important. There is also that myth of dual income, no kids, and lots more disposable income. That's changing. But this is an important audience for you all to engage. And to do so, remember 3 things. There are no fucking shortcuts. It has to be year-round. It has to be genuine. You want to be true with your representation. Don't make it tokenistic. Don't get the token guy who's on your team to come out and do it for you. Don't use one person to get that tokenistic representation. Quite honestly, that's not just for LGBTQ+, that's for racial, religious, all the minorities that you want to work with. And third thing, use the out network. Work with suppliers that actually get that. You'll get somewhere. You want to find out more about it? Here are the details. Come and talk to me. I'm around for today and Thursday. And go onto the website. You can find out lots more. There's some brilliant case studies and ideas of how you can do this authentically, how some organizations, really big companies, are doing it right with our help. Take those ideas, go and implement them yourself. Come and talk to me. I'm always happy to talk. Thank you. I don't know.
Thank you.
Time for questions? Or?
Do we have any questions? I'd love to open up for questions.
Okay.
Aha, we have one. Thank you.
Hiya, Jay from Explore Worldwide. You were talking about turning logos rainbow for Pride. We made a conscious decision not to do that. Do you think it's the right thing to do it or the wrong thing to do it?
Well, I'll tell you my point of view. Our logo didn't need to change. It's that way. But I kid, yeah. That's kind of a flippant answer. But I think if you do it for the right reasons, it definitely helps. So change your logo to show your support, but don't let that be the only thing you do. It's not just about putting a rainbow on your logo, slapping a few rainbow colors here and there on your website. If you want to authentically make your LGBTQ plus consumers feel seen, if you want to empower your LGBTQ plus employees, if you want to show that you're being genuinely inclusive, it has to go more than that. So whether you have that logo or not, I'd say that's up to you. If that was all I was doing, I'd rather not do that. But that's a good first step. It just shouldn't be your only step. I know, easier said than done, isn't it? Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very
you.
great presentation.
Thank you all.
Really enjoyed that.